Welcome back to Fantasy Football Today, presented by Crown Royal. This season, Crown Royal supporting the local communities that serve us off the field. For more, visit at kickoffwithcrown.com. I'm Jamie, that's Dave, that's Adam. We're now at the point where we're talking about the players we like, but we just don't necessarily love. You're starting these guys for the most part, but you might have a little trepidation. So let's get right to it. Adam, Saquon Barkley did not look great in his return to action from the ankle injury last week against the Bucs, but he has a much better matchup this week against the Eagles. What's the concern, and how good can he be?
The concern is he hasn't really looked good as a rusher for much of this year at all. And even though the Eagles are the easiest matchup that he's had thus far this season, I think that their defensive tackles are just going to overwhelm the interior of the Giants' offensive line, which is really bad, as we saw last week and all season long, and all last season too. So I don't think he's going to run. You can just play the tape from last week, by the way, because he was on this list for me last week. I don't think he's going to run very well. I will absolutely start him in full PPR because I think he gets at least 5 catches with all the wide receiver injuries they have. I do think they're going to try to feature him first game with a new offensive coordinator, and he is their best player. But it's just such a bad situation for him, and they don't score. They're the worst red zone team in the NFL. So I think there's a limited ceiling here, especially because the Eagles are going to control time of possession. That's what they do now with this new run-heavy offense. I think you're looking at 15 PPR points max and probably 10 non-PPR points max. So I'm starting him, but not thrilled about it.
I'm going to fulfill my quota by mentioning our producer, Mayron Berkson, probably likes you, doesn't love you for first telling him to run back the program from last week and trying to make him do extra work because maybe he was scrambling to do that. Also, taking the detour earlier in the show about your Thanksgiving process, they're just, you're throwing him off. So he likes you, he just probably doesn't love you right now. But you might have the Hurricanes symmetry there, so maybe you like that.
No, we're boys.
In that same game, Dave, Dave, what do you think about Miles Sanders?
I think he's going to have a chance to lead the way for the Eagles' ground game, but I think he's not going to get every single touch. We saw it last week where Jordan Howard came in, and then he got hurt, and Boston Scott played a big role. So I would imagine that Miles Sanders and Boston Scott are going to split their work. It could be 50-50. My guess is that it'll probably be 60-40 in favor of Miles Sanders. The other thing I noticed about Sanders last week was that he really struggled between the tackles. It was those edge runs where we saw him at his best. Are the Eagles going to continue to give him those types of carries? I think they will, but it might only be 6 or 7 of those types of carries over the course of the game. And what happens when they get near the goal line? Is that really going to be where Miles Sanders fulfills his duty as a fantasy prospect and he gets into the end zone? No, I think that's where you're going to see Jalen Hurts go and find this end zone and pick up numbers just like he did last week. I think the Eagles are in love with Jalen Hurts in that Cam Newton style role. So I don't know what the upside really is for Miles Sanders. I think his upside is even lower than Saquon Barkley's, which I think everybody would agree was pretty normal, but I'm thinking it's around 11 PPR points, 8 or 9 non-PPR points, not necessarily a must-start fantasy running back.
Yeah, I guess the appeal for me for Miles Sanders would be is the work. And as Adam said, they're going to dominate time of possession. He's going to be the lead running back there. Can he score? That's the question. We just haven't seen that very much from him this season. Can he work in the passing game? We haven't seen that from him very much this season. But I'm hopeful given the Giants' run defense. I just don't think it's very good. I think Miles Sanders is a good number 2 running back, but I understand the concern for sure. My guy's Devante Freeman. I think last week was great using him in the passing game. We're just not going to see that with Lamar Jackson under center. That was more of a Tyler Huntley thing. So don't follow that in terms of what the catches were, but I think you're still looking at a situation where it's a decent matchup against the Browns. We've seen their run defense fall apart lately. I'm just a little bit concerned about how much more work Latavius Murray will get and certainly what type of work Murray will get when they get near the goal line. So as you see here, very safe number 2 running back, but just don't feel like full confidence in Devante Freeman like I typically would, because I do think that we're going to see a lot of Lamar Jackson this game on prime time. Let's go to our next guy here, Adam, and we're talking about a wide receiver in Michael Pittman, who will have a chance maybe to be involved a little bit more if the score goes the way we expect with the Bucs playing with the lead and the Colts probably chasing points.
In the last 7 games, only 2 wide receivers have scored against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No wide receiver has more than 70 receiving yards in those 7 games. Competition has a lot to do with it. Terry McLaurin, Devonte Smith's been in there. Those might be the best wide receivers they've faced in this stretch. The Giants wide receivers, I'm not really counting. But their defense has really turned a corner. And obviously, the Colts run the ball on everybody. So here's the thing. The reason why I still like Pittman is because I think the Bucs are going to win this game. And Carson Wentz throws 11 passes more per game in losses than wins. They've been winning a lot of games lately on the strength of Jonathan Taylor. They haven't needed much from Carson Wentz. I think you're going to see a lot more pass attempts from Wentz this week, and that's going to really benefit Michael Pittman, who's been usually in the 6 target range lately. I think he's going to get closer to 10, and you really need that against the Bucs to have a good game. I'm hopeful in that respect. However, I view him kind of as a number 3, a high-end number 3 receiver. I'd like to get away from Pittman just because I do respect this Bucs defense. They've gotten healthier in the secondary. Pass rush is really good. And you still have the Jonathan Taylor aspect as well. So he's good. He's not great. And I'd like to get away from Pittman if I could.
He struggled when T.Y. Hilton's been healthy. That's another part of it as well, is that there's been another competent receiver on the field that Carson Wentz has trusted to whatever extent. And it just hasn't gone the same way for Michael Pittman like it's been when Hilton has not been there. I agree with you. More of a number 3 fantasy receiver than a must-start guy. Let's talk about the next guy here, Dave, and that's Chase Claypool, who has been very up and down this season, but hopefully takes advantage of this Bengals defense like he did in Week 3.
Well, you're hoping that Ben Roethlisberger can throw it a lot, and that's really how he got his huge numbers last week against the Chargers, is because Ben Roethlisberger threw the ball 44 times. I'm okay if Roethlisberger throws the ball 34 times for Chase Claypool to come through and be a useful fantasy wide receiver, and I think he's good enough. I would start him ahead of Pittman, for example. I really think that it's a good opportunity for him against the Bengals. I don't really care so much about what happened the last time he played against Cincinnati. That was a weird game. A bunch of receivers got hurt. That was the game Najee Harris had a bunch of targets as well.
Deontay Johnson did not play in that game.
Right, so they were really short on wide receivers. Now, Johnson's going to play this week. There's no way Chase Claypool is going to have 9 catches in this game. But you could still tell that the Steelers view him as a big play guy. Roethlisberger loves chucking the ball deep to him. I'm a little bit worried about that offensive line still. I'm worried about Roethlisberger's arm strength still. I'm worried about Claypool being a perfect receiver still because he's still making mistakes out there. But he's got that upside that we're looking for. And at this point in the year, you have to gravitate toward those types of wide receivers that can help you there. To me, he's a low-end number 2 wideout.
And for what it's worth, there could be some more target opportunities, not just for him, but obviously for Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth. No Ray McLeod, no Eric Ebron. So some other chances maybe just to get the ball in the top playmakers' hands, including Najee Harris, but Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and Freiermuth as well. Guy for me that I'm a little concerned about is Devonte Smith. Adam, you said this before. It goes in line with the passing game, too. They're running the ball a ton. And what we've seen from Devonte Smith in just his last 3 games, 6 targets in each of those last 3 games. That's basically when the run game is turned in the positive direction for them. In those 2 games, he's got 3 touchdowns. When he scored, he's been great. Last week, as we saw, didn't score against the Saints, 4 catches, 61 yards. But he had the 100-yard game against the Chargers in Week 9, the 2-touchdown game against the Broncos in Week 10, and then I think you saw a little bit of the downside in Week 11. And we're looking at a Giants defense that, again, not exactly the team that you have to worry about in terms of benching any of your star players, but will he get enough of those opportunities? And so with the targets being a little bit suppressed, you're still starting Devonte Smith, but just keep in mind, if he doesn't have a touchdown, doesn't have a big play, you could be looking at a 4 for 60, 5 for 70 type of stat line, and that's not exactly great in terms of where we're ranking him as a must-start wide receiver. All right, we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we're going to get into the DFS plays that you need for week number 12 on FanDuel, on DraftKings. Tyrod Taylor, that's right. The Taylor to Cook stack can win you a lot of money. Who doesn't like winning money? We'll help you do that next here on FFT.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.